everything in the nonprofit does generates from the donor, the donation. The donor has zero control over anything. How you spend that money, how you receive that money, what you do with that money, if you're a good nonprofit or not, they know nothing. They see nothing, they hear nothing. That's part of the problem. Re-engage somebody that hears nothing, sees nothing, does nothing. Like, that's hard, Re-engage, go get more money from a donor. When you actually can show that, that changes the game for you. And I think that's really why we're a huge benefit to a nonprofit that's doing things the right way. It's like, if you have nothing to hide, then we shouldn't have any issue using a platform like ours.
This is Future Formed, where we explore how nonprofits are driving efficiency and innovation to make a greater impact. I'm your host, Erik Fisher, and this show is presented by Jotform Enterprise, the leading web form building platform for nonprofit organizations worldwide. With response data securely stored online, you can create beautiful, customized forms that meet your needs. Stick around until the end of the episode to find out how your nonprofit can access an exclusive discount with Jotform Enterprise. Now, let's dive in. Today, we're excited to be joined by Chase Harmer, the founder of Wishes.Inc., a platform that is redefining charitable giving through transparency and innovation. With over 30 years in payments, Chase is a Fintech visionary blending technology and community-driven support to make giving more impactful and accountable. At Wishes.Inc., Chase has introduced features like virtual credit cards, cashback rewards, and real-time impact tracking, setting new standards for trust and efficiency in the nonprofit sector. Chase, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you with us today.
Hey, thanks, Erik. I'm glad to be here and happy to talk about Wishes and all the things we do.
Now, obviously, I just said a mouthful about all that you've done and all that you're doing, but go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself and your background and the experiences that shaped this journey that led you to where you are today.
Yeah, I've been in payments for a long time, as you stated before, pretty much my whole entire adult life. And back in the 90s, when cell phones weren't existent and half of America didn't take credit cards, which is impossible to fathom these days, right? But, back then in the 90s, credit cards was like, what? Credit cards. So, I kind of worked my way up through the ranks in the processing business, and then kind of became fascinated with the idea of the supply chain in the business, how it worked in the business world. Back in 2011 or so, we were doing, consumers don't know the back ends works of like how a lot of these third-party travel agency booking sites work, like Expedia or Booking.com and things like this. But the supply chain really goes from a consumer to the third-party booking engine, and then that third-party booking engine usually makes that reservation and airfare accommodation in real time. That's how the reservations happen, right? So they take a virtual credit card and pay the supplier. And I thought, well, man, like if I can actually be the front side of that transaction and the back side, you can solve a lot of problems, but then ultimately arbitrage some of that bank interchange fees, that they essentially are creating on every transaction. And so, but more along the lines of the supply chain, solving problems, and so we actually started doing that back in 2011 and 2012, 2013, back before Apple. And just to let you know, virtual credit cards, nobody even knew what a virtual credit card was until 2020, 2019, when Apple Pay came out with its virtual credit card, right? And that's the first time the public really got an idea of like, oh, virtual credit cards, like, okay. But, this was really used for banking and third-party booking engine back in the day. And so I thought, so when I was at Safeway, like a grocery store, every single grocery store in America asks you for a roundup, and I was like, where does this actually go? Like, are the kids that are being helped here? And so I, as a guy that was solving problems, complex business problems for the supply chain, I was like, well, what is a donor and a donation, right? It's a supply chain, right? So you have a consumer or a donor, right, that's making a donation to X charity or X cause or X thing, right, to help a something. We're all motivated as people to help a thing, right? So, it's not because, oh, I really love the Red Cross, I'm going to donate. Yeah, some people are like that, but the majority of Americans, we actually are like, hey, there's a fire happening right now in California. Like, I want to help that fire, right? I want to help the people that are there. So we're emotionally tied to the stories, but as donors, you never actually can see the outcomes. So if you can't see the outcomes, but you're donating because you wanted, there was a reason why. I felt like really what's missing in charitable donations is actually the connection. Like there is no connection because you give it to a pot, and then and it's not the nonprofit's fault. The nonprofits, it's like a big wishes stew. Like going in, like they got all these things that they got to like help and do, right? The reason why the donor donated it in the first place is because of whatever motivated them to do that specifically. But there's no way for the nonprofit to actually say, hey, look what we did with your money. Like, look how this money was utilized. And I think that's really the connection that nonprofits struggle today to actually convey to their donors. They can't re-engage their donors. The second phone call is not, hey, look what we did with your money, but hey, I need another donation. And it's a lot easier conversation to have when you're able to go back to a donor and say, hey, look what we did. Look at the great things we did together with look at the stuff that you helped us solve. And by the way, we need another donation. It's a lot easier layup for another donation when you can show what you did with the donation. But today, that's just not how it works. And it's really just not designed that way. Nonprofits aren't technology firms. They were designed to help a thing, whatever that thing is, right? The mission is to solve this problem and to help, bring that solution and that need. I think that's what's really the biggest part that's lacking. There's no firm that's just like, hey, we're going to create millions of dollars worth of technology and then give it away for free to the nonprofit world so we can make no money, right? That's really every business is like, oh, you're getting in the nonprofit? Oh man, like, okay. And I was like, well, the way that our system works, because our unique way that we actually create these cards to be utilized in real time, not only is that transparency created, but we're connected to about 80,000 different retailers, and we actually make revenue when the dollars are spent. So essentially, we create the transparency. By solving transparency, we actually solve the revenue problem of that. And we share that revenue back with the nonprofits and as well. So donors and nonprofits alike can earn revenue on the spend that's generated, but also really understand what's happening with the money. So I think transparency was really the macro problem that we were trying to solve. But, I think we also created a unique model that allows us to benefit as an organization when those dollars are allocated. And we share that revenue with our nonprofits as well. So,
yeah, that transparency really lends to fixing that problem of communication and connection. How would you say that your previous experiences in payments and fintech and your issued patents influence these innovative solutions that Wishes.Inc. is offering to both these donors and the nonprofits?
100%. So, like it's one thing to have an idea like, oh, well, we can creating. So there's not really that many fintechs that specifically specialize in like outgoing expense management, right? There's expense management is really controlled by a few different companies in the virtual credit card space, but they're not really designed to. They're designed for business, right? Not necessarily nonprofit. And how you spend those funds. I think what makes us really different is we were built for this specific use case. Like we were built for purpose for this, right? And the other thing is we earmark the fund. So when a fundraiser comes on to the platform, there's a reason why they want money. They're always raising money for something, right? You have your mission related expenses that, hey, you have a building, you have people, you have real costs, right? So on our platform, donors have the ability to choose where their dollars go. If you're a donor and you understand the nonprofit, you appreciate that there's a cost there to run the business, you can donate into the pot that basically allows them to put those dollars to their bank account, which essentially are earmarked for people and build like all the things that actually takes to run a business, right? Then the other one is the impact button. The impact button is whether those funds are going to get allocated. Now, as a nonprofit, impact it requires cost. It's not free. So but you're able to say, hey, we're raising money. Let's say your food bank. We're raising money for food, groceries, whatever that category may be. If it is food in this example, those dollars can go into that food grocery earmarked fund, and those funds really can only be allocated that way through suppliers. that supply foods like, Cisco and stuff like this, and then other like grocery stores and restaurants and things that are food related, so, but they can't be used for going to shopping. Like the biggest problem, I think, that going shopping like at Macy's, for example, like, I think the biggest problem with every single crowdfunding platform that exists today, and this is every single crowdfunding, and there's nothing else like this, but once they really push those money to the bank account, is adios. There is no insight. So from a donor's perspective, where's the trust? There is none. Once the funds are allocated, it's over. They have the full control over those funds, and they can do whatever it is. This is why you see programs like No Good Deeds, stuff like this, that special on Netflix about where the people went traveling and did the flight and all this stuff. That actually happens all the time. You just don't hear about it until it's like a big story in the news that it catches some sort of wind. So I in a long-winded way, I think there's a lot of reasons why we solved this, but I had already built a fintech that did this. I understood what it would require to actually make this happen and make it real. So
obviously there's a lot more impact and a lot more transparency happening here, but are there any other ways that Wishes Inc. is helping nonprofits build stronger relationships with donors while simplifying that donation process?
So very simply, they just pick the categories that they need help with, that they're looking for funds for. And those funds are automatically deposited onto cards that are specifically earmarked for those categories. So super simple, but it's also very simple. How do you engage the donors? Well, as a nonprofit, you have the choice to disclose all the fees in real time, or do it on a monthly basis, or maybe you add your donor list in and then you can send a big message to everybody. But you have the ability to do that. Now today, there's nothing like that exists, because you can't show a donor what you did with their $20 or $100. Like, good luck. Well, it just doesn't exist, So, but what to think about a credit card, and this is the easy way to understand it. Like when you go to the grocery store with your own credit card and you spend it on a salami sandwich and whatever, you actually see that you bought a salami sandwich and you left Safeway or Kroger's or wherever that is. This works exactly the same way. We're the card issuer. So how engaging you want to be with your audience is completely up to you. You can actually give donors reports in real time, which is insane. Like when you think about how far-fetched it is like today to do that. It's just not an accurate thing. They're like, oh, real-time transparency with like cryptocurrency. It's like, the problem is that nobody uses it. It's like a hybrid car. You realize how useless it is when you try to actually drive from Nevada to California and there's no supercharging stations in between. You realize you need a gas car, right? Everyone's still using the gas today is credit cards, So, we all use credit cards. We all use it on our phone. We all get alerts in real time. And so we're not changing user behavior. That's the biggest thing, to not change user behavior. So it's exactly as you would have done it anyways, no change. So like when there's no change, I think there's an opportunity to catch wind. When you try to change user behavior, good luck.
Yeah. Well, speaking of credit cards, anybody who's seen an ad for one has heard the term cashback before.
Yeah.
Wishes Inc. allows users to bank cashback for charity through all their everyday activities like shopping and all of that. How does that work?
Yeah. So the process of us doing this, we actually became a publisher. So essentially what a publisher is and what an affiliate is online is, an affiliate is basically like a store, right? That wants they want people to send publishers to send them traffic. Publishers are like the mall, right? Or the big store. So we actually we created an environment where we connected to pretty much every single big box retailer in the United States. Home Depot, CVS, Macy's, Amazon, everywhere. Anywhere you need to buy anything, essentially. And how you can bank donations as a donor is essentially just start the process from inside the app. So, and then essentially once you start the process from inside the app, you'll see exactly how much cash back you can make on the different places you can shop. And there's pretty much everywhere where anyone shops today in the US, like that's a big guy. But if it's a little boutique thing, and you're like, hey, I really, really like to shop at this place, you just can send an email to us at info@Wishes, and we can get them added. But with 76,000 retailers, we covered the gamut of pretty much everything. Most people are spending their dollars, and so you get anywhere from there's as much as up to 10% cashback, depending upon where you go. And we actually even have a double cashback feature, which actually we have a patent for, which is super cool. So like, I'll give you this example without going crazy into how it works. But your card, let's say that you have a Wells Fargo 2% cashback card, right? Or like a Chase Sapphire or something like this, right? And you spend money, you're getting your 2%. Now, if you actually fund your wallet in Wishes, right, with that amount, you can actually use that to shop. So when you'll get your 2% on your initial wallet donation, like contribution, right? And then you can actually spend those dollars from the wallet wherever you want to shop online. And so then essentially you'll get another 1.5% cash back on the Wishes card, like once those dollars are allocated at Amazon or something like this. So you actually can bank up to 4%, and then those dollars sit back in your wallet. The 4%, right, sits back in your wallet, and then you can allocate them out to charity at any time you want to. There's no specific time frame other than you have to do it in the same year. You have them sitting in your wallet. So if you want to bank them and you bank them up, and then once you have like, a few $100 or something, then you donate it at one time. You can absolutely do that. As long as it's in the same calendar year, you'll get tax credit for it that year to do that. So it's pretty cool.
Interesting. So far, everything that I've heard is pretty unique in the space. In what ways does Wishes.Inc. provide nonprofits with better insights and tracking to help manage or maximize their fundraising efficiency in a way that's different from these other platforms and these other companies in this charitable giving space?
Yeah, I think, we're not trying to be all things, right? So like, one thing that I've learned in business is that when you try to be all things, you suck at all of them. So we're actually tracking the spending habits too also. So because we're a card issuer, we actually gather that data, and we're using that data to actually better supply information to the nonprofits and their user base, right? So essentially, if a nonprofit comes in and then their donors are actually utilizing some of the infrastructure that we have, we're able to gain those insights. We share that back with the nonprofits so that they can better reach out to their donors. They'll have ammunition to talk to their donors. And this is really information that's highly unattainable. And the reason why is because when you go to, and I'm just going to give you one example here, the payments companies are the ones with all the data. Okay, we have everything. We know where you buy your toilet paper, all the things, right? So, but that's very highly sought after data that no one really has. And even the payments company itself, like the MasterCard, okay, your MasterCard doesn't necessarily know what you bought in the basket. They know that you spent $1,000 at Amazon, but they have no idea what it was. But we actually are able to grab that data, and we store it in the user profile. And we store that because we want to understand user behavior, purchase patterns, things like this. And those are things that obviously, if we can share back with a nonprofit, we share that data, and we do that because we want them to understand their users better than they do today. And they certainly really don't have this type of insightful data. So I think it's very helpful for them to serve their audience, but ultimately understand how they're spending some of these funds, give them solutions that help their business model. And I think as a payments company, we're obviously legally able to have this data, but it's a lot of data that people just don't have. And so I think that really kind of lends to really the uniqueness of the platform and how we can really specifically dial in to these donors and what they're doing and their user behavior, which is just stuff that the donors don't, or the nonprofits don't have. And the nonprofits own the data, by the way. So we actually don't hoard the data back like every single other platform in the nonprofit space. No nonprofit owns their data. Like their users are all owned by another firm. And then when they try to actually access their data and use it to their benefit, they can't. So I think the biggest thing about our platform is we're like, listen, we're here to really serve the nonprofits and make, because we understand like the change is created, the impact's created by these nonprofits that really kind of give their lives to this stuff. Now, there's some bad apples out there for sure, and I think partly why we created this platform really is to weed them out. Because there's no valid nonprofit out there or non-valid nonprofit that would want to use our platform, because it'd be the exact opposite of the mission that they're trying to accomplish, which is to steal and defraud the donors. And I mean, if you look at the hurricanes that happened in Florida, there was like $1 billion of fraud. $1 billion of fraud. That's insane to me. Like, that's insane. And like a platform like ours can completely eradicate that stuff. And so it's impossible to raise money fraudulently with our platform. And I think that's also a big, huge, me as a donor, I want to understand that my dollars are not only going to this, I understand that, but always not, if I don't understand, right? If I don't understand the nonprofit, which every single nonprofit that's new, good luck trying to establish trust with donors that are already skeptical in the market. I think, we wanted to establish this really for donors that don't know the ins and outs of your nonprofit to give. Hey, like if there's a thing like that needs help, like you should like feel comfortable as a donor to know like that your dollars are always going to the right place, that they're always going to serve what you thought they was going to serve. And, I think that's really, the motivation behind the whole deal. So,
yeah. Transparency seals are often used in this nonprofit sector to signify accountability, but Wishes.Inc. has integrated them uniquely into its platform. And you've got this, I said it earlier, this 97-3 impact to overhead ratio. So my question is, how do the tiered plans and the transparency seals empower nonprofits to maintain trust and accountability, I guess, in a way that sets Wishes.Inc. apart from these other traditional third-party certifications? Yeah,
well, the certifications are useless if you have an accounting firm going back at it like a year in advance. What do they show transparency? They have an auditor come in, maybe an auditor come in, and then that auditor is looking at stuff in the rears. When you're looking at stuff in the rears, you can make things make sense. Oh, well, this was for this project or that was for this project. So transparency, in my mind, if it's not real time, like it's just not real. I think that's just facts. And, we can argue over that if you don't like that comment, but I think that's true. So how we actually make that different is you can come onto Wishes for free. Right? It doesn't cost you anything to raise funds on Wishes or create campaigns on Wishes. It's totally free. And that actually, the free plan is that you get, you can raise funds only through cards. So we understand. So we actually serve people that need help too, right? So if you're a wisher, like a person or a family, like let's just say that you're a family in Los Angeles that their whole lost everything, right? You can actually create a profile, but that's also creates the misuse of funds too, right? So you have fake people going on there with a sob story that's actually not real. And you as a donor, I mean, it's hard to tell like what's real and what's not sometimes, and so you get caught up in this trap. So we ultimately, obviously, that's why we earmark them, but we also do the cards only. Now, the paid plans, the reason why you'd want to play paid plan as a nonprofit is you can also raise money for your mission and the actual nonprofit itself, and those dollars go directly to your bank. Now, logically, if you're a nonprofit, you're probably going to want dollars to your bank, so it's a natural upgrade for our users to actually do that. But then I think fundraising transparency starts with telling the users how you're going to use the money and what you need it for. And I think from the donor's perspective, it's like, where did the dollars go? Like, how do I know that the dollars are going to this fire, right? As an example, like when you give it to Red Cross, how do you know that those dollars that you sent in are going directly to the fire? The answer to that is you don't, right? It's just a big pot. So like here, you have your mission related expenses. You can curate stories specifically for reasons like a Los Angeles fire or like the hurricanes in Florida, things like that. Like if you're a charity, and those dollars can get earmarked directly into those funds, be used specifically for those purposes. But then you also have the ability to collect money specifically for your charity, which you don't have to disclose, because if people understand like why you're raising the money, why you needed it or as an organization, and they trust your organization, they're likely to give there, right? Because we understand as people, like, hey, like it costs real money to operate a real business, and these are all businesses at the end of the day. They're businesses that do specific things, but they have to run like a business. And unfortunately for nonprofits, part of the reason why some of them fail is because they don't run like businesses. They're allocating too much towards certain things, or they're just mismanaging funds. And I think that's because they have a great heart, but they don't have any business sense. And so I think there is a line in the nonprofit world where there actually is a business that has to pay bills and has to operate in an efficient manner. And it requires people, it requires capital, it requires a lot of different things to do that. And those are real costs that nonprofits have. But I think ultimately when you're fundraising, if you're telling people exactly, hey, like this fund is for, our nonprofit to operate, and we got 10 people and blah, blah, blah. You're explaining that problem. A donor can look at that and go, okay, I see, there's real cost there. And, they can donate towards that bucket. And I think that's really where transparency starts. It doesn't start when you get the money. It starts when you're raising the money. It's like when you're telling people exactly how you're going to spend it and why you need it. For operational. And, there's additional features like you can do invoicing and all kinds of different things in our platform, depending upon the level that you get. But I think really that's where it starts. It starts with the fundraise, not when you get the money, but how you're telling your donors you're going to spend it, and if you're telling them, hey, it's going into this bucket, that could be connected to your bank. You don't necessarily need to disclose that after you spend it, because the donor's aware of how you're spending it before you spend it, right? And that's the donor's choice. Honestly, everything in the nonprofit generates from the donor, the donation. Like the donor has zero control over anything. How you spend that money, how you receive that money, what you do with that money, if you're a good nonprofit or not, they know nothing. They know nothing, they see nothing, they hear nothing. That's part of the problem. Re-engage somebody that hears nothing, sees nothing, does nothing. Like, that's hard. Re-engage, go get more money from a donor. When you actually can show that changes the game for you, So, and I think that's really why we're a huge benefit to a nonprofit that's doing things the right way. Is like, if you have nothing to hide, like, then we shouldn't have any issue using a platform like ours.
So what advice would you give to nonprofits looking to embrace this digital transformation, and how does Wishes.Inc. help them adapt to that?
We're plug and play. Our platform, it can be used as a white label. So like our top tier plan, you can do it under your own brand. You can use Wishes under your own brand. It can be all branded for you. So you can instantly have technology in your nonprofit just by having a paid plan, and you can make it look and feel like yours. I think that's a huge difference. So being plug and play it makes it very simple for nonprofits to actually have technology. Whereas technology today is controlled by like two big firms in the nonprofit space. They're all old. They're all like the same. They all make it super challenging and very expensive to actually have technology. And it's like a Salesforce. Like Salesforce is good. I'm not saying they're not good, but try to actually integrate with a Salesforce and not pay $150,000 if like at any type of firm. That's the problem of a Salesforce for a nonprofit. And that's why the only nonprofits that use them are the ones that are massive, like a Red Cross or something like this, because, that was like the only solution for them to use. Like these are a plug and play. So any nonprofit, big or small, can have technology, and we make it super easy to use and make it yours. So I think that's the biggest difference. There's no integration fees. There's no setup fees. If you want a paid plan, it only costs $1 to start. We give you the first 90 days for $1. Hopefully after that, we do enough to make you want to stay. But I think that's the idea.
Seems like there's a lot going on, and, building on what we know about cashback rewards, the virtual credit cards, exclusive discounts. Mm-hmm. How have you seen the impact these features have had on these nonprofits that are using Wishes.Inc.?
Yeah. So, I mean, the good news is that the good news and bad news. Bad news is that we don't have enough test data to really see yet, because we really just opened it up for people to utilize it. We're going to be on iOS in the next week. So we actually we're doing a big move in Los Angeles. So we already are pushed through a few $100,000 through the platform in the first few days, and so we're super excited about the potential of where it's going. And everything that we're saying is real, which is why there's nothing else really like it in the market to compare it to. Is really no comparison data. How it's going to impact and make an impact. That's all real time. So, I think connecting donors to the actual impact they make is where you can really gain loyalty from these donors, but also gain more action, and more action meaning more donors, more people that want to give, because understanding that there's actual real metrics behind where those dollars go is just something that's not available in the market. And I think it's a huge game changer for a nonprofit that's trying to raise funds. So the data, I'm sure, will speak for itself. So we should probably do a follow-up and touch base on how this is working. But so far, so good. We're seeing some great traction, and we have some really big projects lined up that we're excited about. Unfortunately for LA, it's a bad time, but also to our benefit as a platform reaching the market at such a critical juncture, it's really an opportunity for us to step into the role that we really kind of built it for, and we're excited to make that happen for the people of LA.
You mentioned crypto earlier. Tell us a little bit about the cryptocurrency Wishes coin and how it enables donors to support causes instantly, and how it could reshape nonprofits receiving and utilizing donations.
Yeah. So the Wishes coin, we actually have a game that's coming up. It's basically a tap game that allows donors to sit there and tap. And if you're familiar with tap games and how they work, they can be pretty addicting depending upon the game. And so we wanted a fun way for donors to ultimately rack up currency that they can actually donate towards a cause. And for us, we're ultimately every tap is mining currency for us. So the more people actively are tapping in the game, the more currency we're able to generate. And then ultimately we give a portion of that back to the users to basically give wherever they want to. Being that it is on blockchain, it gives us the instant ability to send money worldwide, so globally. So if you think about our card program, specifically works here in the United States and Canada, but outside of that, as we expand and look at different areas and of course, U.S. is our first priority to really kind of make this an amazing thing. But then we can instantly send dollars through the blockchain directly to like Africa or Vietnam or anywhere, there's a need, right? Everything outside of the United States is done on cell phones, and it's done on, like in Africa, it's all cell phones. There's no dollars out there. You can't give like $20 and then have that be useful in real time. They can't use it. So, everything's done through phones. They pay through their phones. They live on their phones. They interact with people on their phones. And so I think, how we talk to people outside of the United States is completely different, and the causes and the things that are supported need to be paid differently. And so we just wanted an easy way for people to rack up, for us to obviously benefit as an organization, because the users essentially, by tapping on the game, create coins, right? And then those coins can be allocated for future use.
How do you envision the nonprofit plans evolving? Like, what additional tools or features, as much as you can tell us, are in development?
Yeah. So, I think when you build a thing, right, you realize, what's missing from the thing, or hey, what you need for that thing. And I said the thing could be anything, but in this case, it's wishes, right? So we're asking for feedback from our nonprofits, and we're asking for feedback from our users as much as possible to say, hey, like, what is it that you want? What is it that you think we should need? And so any user that's on the platform, any nonprofit that's on the platform, we're specifically asking them, for that feedback, and we're trying to take the best ideas. Obviously, everyone's got an idea about what can make it better, or what we could do. And we take all that feedback into consideration, but try to just implement the things that are likely to be the most useful for nonprofits. So, we're looking for feedback. So, hey, get on the app. Let us know what sucks, what's good, what you love, and we'll try to make those features better. We'll try to make more features that are useful. And I think that's where we're at. We're really we're a bunch of young, I guess kind of young,
Young at heart.
Young at heart. That's right. So, we're up for it. We were here. We want to make change, create change, help implement change. And so we're asking for feedback from our users. And I think that's the best I can give you right for now is like, hey, like we're open to taking all considerations and things that we need to do to make it more useful for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking ahead, what are your goals for Wishes.Inc. in the next 5 years? And how do you plan to continue supporting nonprofits in achieving their missions?
Yeah. Well, I think, we're starting on the right track. I mean, our goal as an organization, our vision is an organization is to touch 1 billion lives positively. So, and we can only do that through the help of nonprofits and donors and people actively participating, supporting causes. Our revenue is completely based upon expenditure of those funds. And so we want to help nonprofits get their money fast. We want to help them expend their money, how they need to spend it, at the places they need to spend it. Instantly. And I think that's why we also brought the stores to the platform is so that way you can instantly deploy dollars exactly where you need to spend them. With our goal and our ambition so high, I think we have a lot of room to make it there. And 5 years probably hopefully is enough. But that's the goal. There's only 8 billion people on this earth, so they say. So 8 billion and some change, I guess. So 1 billion's a pretty big ask. Hopefully, we get into the millions relatively soon, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah. Well, Chase, it's been great talking with you today on Future Formed about Wishes.Inc. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and the incredible work that you're doing with Wishes.Inc. to transform charitable giving.
I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much. And if you're not a user yet, it's really easy to sign up, and it's free, so it doesn't cost you anything. And we'd love to see you in there. So thanks so much for your help.
As we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have a special offer just for nonprofits. You can apply to receive a 30% discount with Jotform Enterprise. Visit jotform.com/enterprise/nonprofit to get started and see how Jotform can support your mission. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and stay connected for more stories of innovation and impact in the nonprofit world. Until next time, I'm Erik Fisher, and this has been Future Formed.